The Boston Bruins are running out of time to turn things around.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B, win or lose. A lot of losses piling up. Thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. It's free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today on the podcast, we're going to break down the storylines, stats, and signals from a loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning on Thursday, as well as preview tomorrow night's game against the Florida Panthers. The moms on the road with their boys, and hopefully they're having fun away from the rink, because not too much to get excited about with regards to how their sons are playing these days. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. So the Bruins have now lost 6 games in a row, 7 out of 8 since the holiday break. And they are winless here in 2025. And like I said, today is the 10th of the month. And the latest loss came at the hands of a Tampa Bay Lightning team that finally, perhaps inevitably, passed them for third place in the Atlantic Division, dropping the Bruins down to the first wildcard spot in terms of actual points earned. But as we'll see a bit later on, that remains a bit deceiving. The Bruins looked not too bad early on in this one. It was scoreless for a good chunk of this game. They were putting the pressure on Andrei Vasilevsky and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Jeremy Swayman was making some massive saves. The Bruins found themselves on the power play near the end of the second period with a chance to take a lead and perhaps build from there, when all of a sudden a dump in resulted in both Mason Lohrei and Swayman looking absolutely lost. Anthony Cirelli picks up the puck and fires it home for a 1-0 lead on a shorthanded goal. The best way to get the Bruins off their game is to take a penalty, because once they get on the power play, they become completely discombobulated, and more often than not, not literally, but there's a good chance you could score against them. They have the league's worst goal differential on special teams. The power play is largely ineffective, and when you have a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have exceptional penalty killers, it's going to burn you, especially when you have a young defenseman out there who, again, looked a little lost, and also when you have a goaltender who's not exactly on top of his game right now. Over the past 8 games, the Lightning have gone 17 for 17 on the penalty kill with 4 shorthanded goals, which is pretty incredible. And the Bruins, again, I've said this before, let's reiterate it again. When we look at the stats from this game, their shooting percentage 5-on-5 is better than their shooting percentage on the power play, which is really quite unheard of. Now, Mason Lohrei did kind of redeem himself later in the game with a beautiful toe drag and a goal. He credited the forwards doing a great job getting in front of Vasilevsky. The only reason he scored, he said, is because they got bodies in front of the net. Joe Sacco, interim coach, reiterated that, saying we were getting to the net pucks were getting to the net. They had bodies there, and they need more of that. He wants to see the group play with that desperation and that passion the whole 60 minutes. But alas, they did not get that on this night. They were outshot in each of the first two periods. To their credit, they did come on a bit in the third period, but following Lorai's goal, they allowed an empty netter to Brandon Hagel, and Braden Point scored a power play goal late in the game. We'll discuss kind of the late game shenanigans in the signals portion of the show. But the big storyline from last night's game was the sixth straight loss, and Boston yet to win here in 2025. And you already made the move to replace your head coach. It's been a couple months now since that happened, almost. And while the Bruins did get a bit of a bump in the early days of Joe Sacco's tenure, right now you have to look at the roster composition and just say, this team isn't that good. And the pieces they brought in to solidify the core haven't quite fit yet, or have yet to really find their place. You look at the teams that the Bruins beat in the Joe Sacco early days, and many of them were non-playoff teams. And you look at Boston's success overall this season, the 20 wins that they do have, few of them have come against very serious teams when it comes to challenging for a Stanley Cup this year. Going back to early this season, they beat Montreal, Los Angeles, one win against Colorado, which is probably their most impressive win of the season. They did beat the Leafs earlier on, but again, then you have Philly, Seattle, Calgary, St. Louis, Utah, Detroit, the Islanders. They haven't really beaten serious contending teams, except for maybe the game on the 23rd of December, which was their best effort of the season, and we hoped that they would really build on that. But alas, it didn't happen. They were not able to build on that win over the Capitals heading into the Christmas break, and they've now come out, only been able to beat the Columbus Blue Jackets after the holiday break. And here we are now, the Bruins losing 6 in a row, 7 of their past 8, with 2 games coming up here against Florida and then another one against the Lightning. And again, that's going to be a tough slog for this team to get back on track. And then their next game after that is against the Ottawa Senators, a team that is also in a bit of a tailspin after losing Linus Ullmark to injury, and who's still right in the thick of it when it comes to the playoff push. The storyline around this team right now is you made a coaching change, and now it's incumbent upon management to take accountability for the state of this club at the moment, on the verge of completely dropping out of a playoff spot. And what are you going to do about it? Are you going to make a move? Are you going to call up Matt Poitras, call up some of the kids, make a trade? You cannot keep going with this group and expect things to just change overnight. The indicators are not there to suggest that they're going to be, that this is just a temporary swoon. They're built for the playoffs, we are told, but it's quite likely that they're not going to make the playoffs at this point. So what are you going to do to try to salvage this season? Should they even attempt to salvage this season? Should they try to add? Should they go into sell mode? That's what is ahead of Don Sweeney at the moment. And you bet that ownership is looking down and putting these guys under a magnifying glass, your Sweeneys, your Neelys, because we're hearing chants, boos, at TD Garden. If it starts to affect the bottom line, you know the Jacobs family will take action because, let's be honest, that's their primary motivation. We'll discuss some more stats and signals to take away from last night's game here as the podcast continues. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose on that $5 bet. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. So whether it's who's going to score a touchdown, which teams are going to win, all you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you so much again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. It's free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And last night, the Bruins at 5-on-5, they were fairly even with the Tampa Bay Lightning. They had 50.5% of the shot attempts. Shots were 26-24 in favor of the Bruins, 26-21 the scoring chance differential. High danger chances were 14-12 in favor of the Lightning, and expected goals were actually in favor of the Bruins. However, because of special teams dominance by the Lightning, they scored on the power play. They got a shorthanded goal. They went 1 for 4 on the power play. The Bruins went 0 for 2, I should say. And that was really the difference again in this game. Boston's inability to score on the power play, and that one shorthanded goal really the Bruins were not able to recover from that. You get a power play, you need to be able to at least hold serve or not give up a shorthanded goal. But the Lightning, very, very talented in that respect. On the power play, Boston's shooting percentage is 8.02, which is 31st in the NHL. At 5-on-5, their shooting percentage rises a bit to, let's see what it's at, 23rd ranked, 8.32. So the Bruins have a better shooting percentage with more opposing players on the ice than they do with fewer. Just think about that for a second. It's unbelievable. Now, the Bruins PDO has dropped a little bit, so perhaps there is some bad luck working in their favor. They rank 20th in PDO at the moment, 0.998. Again, the average is around an even 100, so there could be some positive regression here in terms of shooting percentage, save percentage. But if you look at this team, they're pretty much what they are. They're not a dominant possession team. They're middle of the pack when it comes to shot attempt differential at 5-on-5. When it comes to shot differential, 5-on-5, this team is, let's see here. This is according to Natural Stat Trick. They rank 18th. When it comes to high danger chance differential at 5-on-5, they rank not bad, actually, 11th. So there is an argument to be made that if they were able to get a bit more puck luck 5-on-5 and improve the power play just a little bit, because it cannot get any worse, then they might be onto something here. However, it's clear after this amount of games that they just don't have the finishers. They don't have the scorers. I mentioned yesterday, Brandon Hagel, who was third on the Lightning in scoring, had more points than Boston's leading scorer, who is David Pastrnak. They just don't have the talent level that some of these other teams have, especially the top 6 teams in the Eastern Conference. And when we're talking stats, you have to look at point percentage, not total points. If you look at point percentage, which is the percentage of possible points the team has earned, and that's with the loser point, the Bruins are 20, 19, and 5. So they've won 20 games. They've lost 24 games, 45 of a potential 88 points. That's a 511 point percentage. That puts them behind 10 teams in the Eastern Conference. Teams with fewer points than the Bruins, but with a better point percentage, include the Columbus Blue Jackets, who've won 3 in a row, the Ottawa Senators, who are only 4-5-1 in their last 10 games, the Montreal Canadiens, who have won 2 in a row. They're 8-2 over their past 10, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Bruins are at 5-11. The Penguins at 5-12. The Canadiens and Senators are 5-13. The Blue Jackets are 5-24, but that shows you how tight things are. Even the Red Wings are in striking distance of our Bruins. They've got 40 points in 40 games, 4 games in hand on the Bruins, and only 5 points back. So the Bruins could conceivably even drop below the Red Wings. Goal differential, the Bruins are now dead last in the Eastern Conference. So if you look at point percentage, they're 11th. Goal differential, they're 16th. It doesn't bode well for success. They were at minus 21 when Jim Montgomery was fired. They're now at minus 27 in the total. So that's minus 6 under Joe Sacco. There were some improvements early on, but that has been nullified as of late once they've been playing some better teams. Now we're talking about signals. I mentioned earlier, we got to call somebody up at the very least. I know it's difficult right now on the mom's trip. It's a bit awkward to make some roster moves, but you can't just keep the status quo and think things are going to improve. The Bruins and Lightning play again next week, and there was some bad blood that kind of bubbled up in the end of this game as Mark Kastelik was cross-checked. He was seemingly caught off guard into fight mode, looked a little banged up, may have hit his head on the ice. He was a bit wobbly as he got up, yelled at his combatant, someone named, what was this guy's name? Lilleberg. And the Bruins were not happy about it after the game. Jeremy Swayman said, one thing they won't lose in the room is having each other's backs. And Kastelik, who may have suffered a head injury, that's not going to go unnoticed. It was unnecessary, Swayman said. Kastelik is the toughest guy in the league for a reason. He's fighting a guy while knocked out. Unbelievable to see that. Hope he's feeling better, and they want him back soon. Morgan Geekie said it was a cheap cross-check, and they were not too happy about it. So check the highlights from the end of the game. No doubt that will spill over into next week's rematch, which will take place on home ice. Coming up next for the Boston Bruins, though, is a date with the Florida Panthers, and we'll preview that game here as the podcast continues. Live events are so thrilling to attend. I love going to games, concerts, even comedy shows near me. And one of my favorite memories from this past year was going to see the Arkells on my birthday. Energy and excitement were unforgettable. Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The view from your seat means you know exactly what to expect when you arrive at the venue, and their all-in pricing shows the total cost upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create a Game Time account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Because what time is it? It's game time. All right, Bruins, Panthers on Saturday. It's going to be a tough one for the boys in black and gold. And I recently watched the Tragically Hip doc on Amazon Prime. And if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. Their lead singer, Gord Downie, one of the most inspiring musicians, Canadians, people that I have ever encountered. And I really wish that I had gotten into this team into this band earlier. Gord Downie, of course, a famous Bruins fan because of his relationship with Harry Sinden. And one of their most famous songs is New Orleans is Sinking Fast and I Don't Want to Swim. That really got me thinking about the Bruins because they're sinking fast. It's very hard to watch this team right now. And they will be taking on a Florida Panthers team tomorrow that they have lost to twice already this season. 6-4 back on opening night, and then 4-3 just a week after that as well. So the Bruins 0-2 against the Panthers this season. The Panthers 25, 15, and 12 record. They are 6-4 over their past 10, coming off a win over Utah. Again, the Bruins 3-6-1 in their past 10. One win in their past 8 games. 3 points earned over that span. That's 3 out of a possible 16 points that the Bruins have earned. Always interesting to see these two teams play. And you're not going to believe this, but the top player for the Panthers over their past 5 games is a guy who played for the Bruins just last season, and that's Jesper Boqvist. He's got 4 goals and 6 points for the Panthers in their past 5 games. Alexander Barkov is one of their leading scorers. He's quieted down a bit, and a guy like Boqvist stepping up. These guys are led in scoring by Sam Reinhart, Matthew Tkachuk, Alexander Barkov, Carter Verhaeghe, Sam Bennett, Anton Lundell, and now Jesper Boqvist on the verge of a 10-goal season. He's got 9 goals, 8 assists, and he has already outproduced what he achieved last season for the Bruins when he had 6 goals, 8 assists in 47 games. He's getting almost 2 more minutes of playing time. Perhaps the guy the Bruins should have held on to, but I think he wanted to go to Florida to play with his brother, Adam. In net for the Panthers, they have a 2-headed duo of Sergei Bobrovsky, who is 18-9-1 with a .903 save percentage. Spencer Knight, 7-6-1 with an .891 save percentage. They rank 6th on the power play, 12th on the penalty kill, 10th in goals per game, 16th in goals allowed per game. And let's just be honest, straight up a better team than our Boston Bruins. And to suggest the Bruins will beat the Panthers is a bit of a stretch. I wouldn't go in there predicting a win for the Bruins. The Panthers are chasing the Maple Leafs for first in the Atlantic. They got 52 points, a plus 12 goal differential, which is fairly modest. But of course, they're the defending Stanley Cup champions. They went to the final 2 years ago. They always have Boston's number as of late, and it's going to be a tough task for the Bruins to be able to pull this one off. Will they go back to Jeremy Swayman, who's got an .893 save percentage now? He did look very good at times, but the 2 early goals that were scored looked a little suspect. Jonas Korpisalo's got an .892 save percentage. Maybe they go back to him. Who knows? But Swayman, who did have a winning record not too long ago, now at 13-5-3. David Pasternak's got 4 goals over his past 5 games, but he's quieted down over the past couple. Now at 42 points in 44 games, which is below a point per game average after back-to-back 100-plus point seasons. Brad Marchand, 33 points. Then the next closest guy is Zacha at 21, Elias Lindholm at 20. This team just has an offensive problem, and you need to do something about it. Don Sweeney, I'm looking at you to at least make some sort of change here, because this mix is not working at the moment. We'll see what happens over the weekend. We'll be back on Monday to recap the game against the Florida Panthers, to preview the week ahead. It'll be a lighter week for the Bruins next week. They've only got one midweek game and then weekend action. So we'll have lots of time to take a breath, decompress, and really figure out where this team is at. And hopefully they are able to make a move or two, at least after the mom strip. That's it for today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, my friends. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me and to listen and support the show. Please do check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey next, because Steal and Flip have all the tips you need to get the edge over your opponents this week. And I hope you all have a great weekend. Have some downtime. We're going to be heading out for Henry's birthday party on Saturday. I'm getting a much needed haircut, which is why I've been wearing toques so much on the YouTube feed, and try to get some rest as well, because life is heavy these days and it's kind of a bummer time of year. So please do take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you here again on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.